Face masks have become one of the main symbols of the protester movement here in Hong Kong. They are also a way to hide identities from surveillance cameras. Now, it's illegal for protesters to cover their faces. Their protests have become increasingly violent. Initial peaceful rallies, the largest ever seen here, calling for the withdrawal of a proposed extradition law, have escalated into running battles and vandalism. Their demands became more of a broad pushback against what protesters see as growing control from Beijing. Chief Executive Carrie Lam has turned to a British colonial-era emergency law not used since riots in 1967. Anyone who wears a mask could face up to a year in jail and a $3,000 fine.
Hong Kong is not in a state of emergency, and we are not proclaiming that Hong Kong is entering a state of emergency. But we are indeed in an occasion of serious danger, which is a stated condition in the Emergency Regulations Ordinance.
Many of the protesters said that they were not deterred by the emergency law and will carry on as before. Others felt it might stop some demonstrators, but the ban won't help end the crisis, possibly having the opposite effect.
I think some people would be afraid of bearing the legal consequences and are not going to protest in the future. I also think that such a hardline approach is not going to work in the long run.
This group of protesters has been moving about here in the central financial district of Hong Kong. It started with a march of thousands. Now it's pared down to hundreds. But what they're doing is they're bouncing between main intersections and blocking them off.
After work hours, the number of protesters swelled into the thousands again. Barricades were built, fires lit. They then moved on from the financial district, the marching mass of people growing. The majority of the protesters ended up in Causeway Bay, clogging the streets and vandalizing MTR subway stations and businesses the protesters view unsympathetic to their movement. As routine now, riot police came in to push the protesters out. Most left, but small numbers faded into the smaller streets. And with the announcement of more protests planned for this weekend, it's a routine that will probably be repeated. Scott Heidler, Al Jazeera, Hong Kong.